Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Front and Center, a program that focuses on the developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. Join me in this program here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And this program, Front and Center, and the programs of Radyo Pilipinas World Service can also be listened on the following shortwave frequencies. That's 12.010 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. Join us for another edition of Front and Center. I'm your host, Jerome Toledo. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. led the 122nd anniversary of Labor Day in Malacañang Palace. And this year's Labor Day coincides with the golden year of establishment of the Labor Code of the Philippines under Presidential Decree 442 on May 1, 1974. The Labor Code has set the standard on protecting our workers, be it in domestic or in overseas setting. Speaking of overseas, President Marcos Jr. has tasked the Department of Migrant Workers to fulfill a simple but crucial objective. Let's listen to a portion of Labor Day speech of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
So on this Labor Day, I task the DMW with these simple but crucial objectives. First, strengthen protection of OFWs by making sure that government will be there during their hour of need. Towards this end, let us continue to mobilize the 2.8 billion peso Action Fund and provide protection for distressed OFWs to attain justice and be safe from harm during global crises and emergencies. Let us also likewise provide forms of assistance to OFWs requiring welfare, repatriation, and reintegration services. Second, let us strengthen our efforts on labor diplomacy at the bilateral and multilateral levels and realize our shared responsibility with host countries to ensure safe and ethical recruitment processes and just and humane conditions for our OFW. Third, let us empower our OFWs as our partners in nation building. Hence, I have directed the DMW, the DOLE, and all other government agencies to strengthen program coordination and development for the reintegration of returning OFW.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. And in this edition of Front and Center, we will focus on Attorney Hans Leo Cacdac as he was appointed by the Chief Executive as Secretary of Department of Migrant Workers. Prior to his appointment, he served as officer in charge of the department as its inaugural secretary, Susan Toots Ople, has passed away last year. He also served as Undersecretary for Foreign Employment and Welfare Services of the said agency. He previously handled key positions in Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, the then Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, and the Department of Labor and Employment. In his appointment on the top post, what will be his top priorities and agenda in the department? And we are truly privileged to introduce our guests for this episode of Front and Center. We have the Secretary of the Department of Migrant Workers, Secretary Hans Leo Cacdac. Secretary Cacdac, thank you for joining us in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, good day to you and to your viewers. Good day then, and thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. Let's proceed with this interview, Secretary Cacdac. But first, congratulations on your appointment as the Department of Migrant Workers Secretary. Um, well, on the Labor Day speech of President Marcos Jr. on May 1st, he tasked the Department of Migrant Workers to mobilize the action fund amounting to 2.8 billion Philippine peso. Uh, if we can recall, Secretary Kakdak, this Action Fund was previously known as Assistance to National and was previously managed by the Department of Foreign Affairs, focusing exclusively on the unique challenges faced by the migrant workers. So for this one, Secretary Kakdak, how will you be managing this fund for the benefit of OFWs? Will this
Yeah,
suffice given
yeah,
that?
yeah. Yes, let me just clarify that this is separate and distinct from the DFA Assistance to Nationals Fund, which continues to be funded under the General Appropriations Act, and this action fund is a special fund set up in the charter of the Department of Migrant Workers, the legislative charter, that creates a fund for OFWs in distress who need legal, financial, humanitarian, and medical and other forms of assistance. So this is a fund that we can utilize in a variety of ways, and of course, as we know, we've had some cases also turned over to us by the DFA, and we're handling currently with respect to jurisdictions where there is a migrant workers office. We're handling the legal cases, meaning cases filed by OFWs against their employers for contract violation and violation of labor rights, as well as cases that can be filed against OFWs, for instance, criminal cases where they need the legal services of a defense lawyer. So this is the one important component of the action fund. And of course, during Labor Day yesterday, we were directed by the president to ensure that we utilize this fund. We're thankful to the president and to the Congress for providing us 2.8 billion for 2024, and we will indeed utilize this fund for assistance. And the president also mentioned during global emergencies there will be OFWs who need to benefit from this fund, and we shall do this as well in terms of repatriation services, and also in terms of helping out OFWs in distress through, as I mentioned, medical assistance.
Okay, it's not just about legal. The action fund is not. It does not only cover legal, terms or assistance, to be exact, but also it covers assistance to our OFWs who are stricken by natural calamities and so on and so forth. Is that correct, Secretary Kakdak?
Yes, that's right. That's right. It's a fund that can be utilized in a variety of ways. It can be utilized for those who had just returned, for instance, returnees from Sudan last year, and Israel also, in light of the current situation there, have benefited from this fund. Also, OFWs who have a medical condition, whether here or abroad, upon coming home, might need some medical help or funds, for instance, for their medicine or treatment. So we can also fund such expenses under the action fund.
All right. And for this year's fund of the action fund, which is 2.8 billion Philippine peso, will this suffice given that this is a marching order of President Marcos Jr.?
Yes, of course, it will be enough in my view, but of course we can always request for a supplemental fund, but the 2.8 billion in itself, I think, will already cover a host of cases involving distressed OFWs and cover many beneficiaries.
All right, and that's good to hear that all of the cases or cases of OFWs that will be in trouble will cover on that action fund.
Yes, that's right. That's
Oh,
right.
all right. Okay, moving on, Secretary Kakdak. On your first flag ceremony as newly appointed DMW Secretary, you mentioned that you will continue the programs of the late Secretary Susan Toots Ople in the department. My question is, what programs of the former Secretary would you like to continue now that you are leading the department?
Well, policies and programs, no? And one main policy thrust under Secretary Ople's time
Mm-hmm.
was the matter on the DMW being the tahanan or home of OFWs, tahanan ng OFWs,
Mm-hmm.
where they could find solace, where they could find sanctuary from harm and from a situation where their rights have been violated, and where they feel that they can put forward their grievances, and also any issues or any suggestions or proposals by way of policy improvements or program development that they could put forward. Also, with respect to reintegration,
Mm-hmm.
which is also a presidential mandate,
Yeah.
as stated by the president yesterday,
Yes.
that we can also provide reintegration services for returning OFWs. And also, Secretary Toots emphasized the rights-based approach, which is part of our protective mantle, which means we will be mindful of the human and employment rights,
Mm-hmm.
labor rights of OFWs, and how we will safeguard those rights. And also, Secretary Toots developed the concept or the policy thrust of OFWs as co-architects of national development, meaning
Mm-hmm.
the continuing participation of OFWs and their families in our economy. They are part of our nation building process, our nation building experience. They are, uh, should I say, part of our economic engine or elements of growth.
Mm-hmm.
And in this regard, we will empower them with financial education in terms of knowledge on how to save, plan, and invest, so they could use their earned income, hardly earned income, wisely, and also point them in the direction of skills upgrading if they seek further employment, or facilitation of employment itself, and or
Mm-hmm.
training with respect to livelihood
Mm-hmm.
and entrepreneurship if they wish to set up businesses. So we, of course,
Mm-hmm.
having said all that, we will partner with the relevant government agencies such as the TTI,
Mm-hmm.
Department of Agriculture, TESDA, um, DOLE,
Mm-hmm.
and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas for financial education.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to veer them away from investment scams, we have partnered with the Securities and Exchange Commission under their ASTIG program, where they are carrying out implementation of
Mm-hmm.
investment scam laws and regulations,
All right.
so that OFWs do not become victimized by investment scams.
All right. And by the looks of it, Secretary Kakdak, it looks like various government agencies come together to be as one. This is like a whole of government approach towards our overseas Filipino workers.
Yes, that's right. It's certainly a whole of government approach, and this has been seen
Mm-hmm.
or exemplified in our effort to help returning Sudan and Israel OFWs, where we had received them at the airport and provided all the kinds of services that our various governments agencies under the whole of government approach directed by the president
Mm-hmm.
have undertaken, such as agencies such as the DOH, for instance, like Ted Orbosa and his team of doctors providing physical, medical, and mental wellness checkups,
Mm-hmm.
and the SWD, SecRex Chalian, with the provision of also financial assistance and entrepreneurship and counseling, psychosocial counseling services. And we have TESDA, DG Mangudadatu,
Mm-hmm.
providing free training. They give out free training commitments or vouchers
Right.
upon arrival, so that OFWs can think of ways in which they can
Mm-hmm.
enhance their skills. These training commitments include free training under any TESDA accredited program, and training institution of their choice.
All right, and that's a good way to make our Philippine or overseas Filipino workers progress or develop themselves in the near future.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
More than anything, it's ensuring or assuring OFWs that the government is always on their side, and no less than the president had made sure that we would make them feel that the government is on their side, and will partake of their ambition, of their dream, to better themselves,
Yeah.
to develop their families and their communities.
Okay, that's great to know, Secretary Kakdak. By the way, before I proceed to my next question, I somehow read a tweet from International Labor Organization. They posted a photo. Actually, it says that labor rights is human rights. Do you agree on that, Secretary Kakdak?
Yes, of course. Human rights are enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights uh, ago, and the Philippines adheres to this basic Universal Declaration, and part and parcel, and should I say a consequence of this Universal Declaration is adherence to uh, labor rights, the rights of workers
Yeah.
in terms of their contractual rights, statutory rights in terms of their rights under labor laws and regulations, whether here in the Philippines or in the host country. So the basic entitlements to a basic wage and adherence to vacation leaves and
Yeah.
other related rights pertaining to workers.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that, Secretary Kakdak. Okay, my next question is under your leadership, before you became as a secretary, under your leadership as the then officer in charge, the department is actively running after illegal recruitment agencies, and we saw you that you are personally leading on shutting down the operations of those fly-by-night recruitment agencies, because this illegal recruitment activity eventually turns into a human trafficking situation. So for this one, Secretary Kakdak, are we expecting intensified operations against these illegal recruiters, and what are the steps that the department is taking to combat the practice of illegal recruitment in the country?
Yes, so the practice of illegal recruitment is a scourge, and we want OFWs and job applicants and their families to not to be victimized, and so the campaign continues on two levels actually. There's a preventive side, so we go around the country campaigning for or illegal recruiter. Avoidance of illegal recruitment and how to spot and detect illegal recruiters, and also in terms of prosecution, when one is victimized by illegal recruitment, then we also established links to law enforcement, to prosecutorial agencies such as the DFA, DOJ, and of course we have an anti-human trafficking law. So under the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, headed by the DOJ, we also participate and take part in preventive anti-human trafficking endeavors, as well as prosecution of human traffickers, especially labor traffickers. So the fight continues. We will not let our guard down, and that's precisely the point of us going around the city, at least the NCR for the central office of the DMW, and we crack down on illegal recruitment establishments, and we shut them down after a series of operations. In this case of the last one that we shut down, illegally recruiting workers for Canada, there were at least 8 surveillance operations by our undercover operatives who indeed established the practice of illegal recruitment by this entity that is recruiting workers for Canada without a license.
Okay, okay. So for this one, I would like to get an update, Secretary Kakdak, if we have prosecuted illegal recruiters so far, or have we
Yes,
put
yes.
them
In
behind bars?
2023, we had a good record, 15 convictions. Um, this is a good enough record, considering that the cases before our criminal courts take time. It's a proof beyond reasonable doubt that must be established in our criminal courts of law, and therefore it takes time to prosecute. In cases where the accused is indeed the perpetrator, takes time to establish a conviction. So, but we have 15 convictions in 2023, and for human trafficking, there are around 83, I think, human trafficking convictions.
Oh,
We had retained our Tier 1 status with the U.S. State Department in
correct.
terms of their trafficking in persons report. Tier 1 is the highest ranking for any country that is rated by the U.S. State Department. So our effort continues. We must keep combating illegal recruitment, especially as the battle has also shifted to the virtual online facility,
Yeah.
where illegal recruiters are now recruiting their victims through social media and
Right.
other online portals or facilities. And of course, we are there with around 7,800 shut down. No, I'm sorry, 10,000 plus eight shut down Facebook pages in partnership with Facebook and Meta,
Right.
and around 7,800 via Instagram. So
Oh.
we are there. We are present online to crack down on even illegal recruiters online.
Okay. And you are coordinating with the Philippine National Police to
Yes.
cut these
Yes, of
illegal
course. We refer
recruiters.
cases to the Philippine National Police and the prosecutorial arm, the DOJ, and National Prosecution Service, and endorse cases accordingly.
Ah, okay. All right. Let's talk about one of your agenda, Secretary Kakdak, which is to develop career, employment, and entrepreneurship pathways for OFWs. So, as we know, there are hundreds of OFWs that were repatriated back in the Philippines for a variety of reasons, such as ongoing geopolitical tension, war, mass retrenchment due to bankruptcy. We know that Saudi company has filed bankruptcy 5 years or 7 years ago, and also natural calamities and even personal emergencies. And also, the president in his speech has ordered the reintegration of returning overseas Filipino workers. So, how the department will fulfill this agenda?
Well, first and foremost, we've taken steps to bring the relevant government agencies together. And reintegration is obviously a task that must be shared by many government agencies, including the private sector. So the DMW would be an enabler, if I may say so, of our reintegration policies and programs, such that we are bringing together the various government agencies. So that's the first step, an interagency cooperative measure, and the other endeavor that we are pursuing is a one-stop shop.
Oh,
So that a physical and a virtual one-stop shop, so that OFWs would know where to go. If they just go to that reintegration one-stop shop, for instance, then the DMW will be there to provide livelihood training or information with regard to job opportunities, and the DOLE also with us, and then the TESDA to provide available information and services on how to access training programs and institutions, and the DTI, of course, with their various small and business, medium, micro, and medium business portals, loan facilities, loan and grant facilities, and so with the DA. And so we bring together all the different government agencies in a physical and virtual facility, so that it's easier for OFWs to approach the different government agencies,
right.
and find their way through the pathway in terms of how to successfully reintegrate themselves back to our economy.
Okay. All right. And that's good to know, Secretary Kakdak, that at least there are help or there are assistance that is ready to be offered to our overseas Filipino workers.
Yes, yes, and we of course are also developing a digital tool for this, because there will be, ever as mentioned, a virtual facility. So We hope that this digital tool will be very handy. We hope that in terms of, um, let's say, through the smartphone, it would be easier for an OFW to determine or to track, even if one is still in abroad, to track what a possible pathway, the possible plan of action, a personal plan of action that one could take if one already intends to come home.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Secretary Kakdak. But of course, in relation to that, what kind of support system that the Department of Migrant Workers is going to implement to help our elderly migrant or senior migrant workers who wishes to return and retire in the Philippines for good?
Yes, we're developing programs to help senior citizens. I won't preempt any future announcement, but
Alright.
we're finding ways to help those who had come home and should I say come home for good and retired for good
Yes. Yeah.
in our country and had uh, somehow still need government help even as they had already spent some time abroad. So I won't have any announcements in this regard, but rest assured we're finding ways to provide grants or assistance to those who had come home.
Yeah, sure. And also we will be look or checking on that in the next couple of weeks or months for that.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay. And two more questions before I let you go, Secretary Kakdak. President Marcos Jr. also tasked DMW to strengthen Philippines' effort on labor diplomacy at bilateral and multilateral level and to realize our shared responsibility with host country to ensure safe and ethical recruitment processes and just and humane conditions for our OFWs. So, is DMW in talks with its foreign counterparts to ensure the safety of our overseas workers and eventually avoid grave incidents among our workers in the future?
Yes, labor diplomacy is very important because labor diplomacy already puts us in a position to share the responsibility of protecting our OFWs with the host country. As you know, since OFWs work in another country, we do provide protective mechanisms for them. There is a presence by our labor attaché, migrant workers office, and embassy under the DFA to provide assistance. And of course, even before they're recruited, as I mentioned, there are already many mechanisms to ensure that they don't fall prey to illegal recruitment. However, when an OFW is in the host country, is abroad, that there's nothing better than to have the host country partner with us or join us in terms of ensuring protection of our OFWs. And that's what labor diplomacy is all about. That we talk to our host country government counterparts. We agree with them. We sign commitments with them in terms of ensuring that workers are protected during the time of recruitment and time of employment and upon return. So this is a very important directive from the president because it clearly emphasizes that for the president, bilateral labor relations is top priority, that it is important that we have as partners the host country governments, and no less than the president himself has already exemplified this effort. Every time we're in abroad, I had witnessed this myself. The president, in talking to his head of state counterpart, always brings up OFW protection. And of course, thanks the host government for protecting OFWs, but at the same time, speaks of enhancing such protection. So it's a very important mandate. And I think the president also mentioned not just bilateral, but multilateral fora where we could push for OFW protection. So in the United Nations, in the International Organization for Migration, in the ILO, International Labor Organization, in the International Maritime Organization. So in these various in ASEAN, in these various multilateral fora, then we had been clearly directed by the president to push for strengthening of OFW protection, observance of OFW rights, and just and humane conditions of work for OFWs.
Okay. And before we conclude this interview, Secretary Kakdak, do you have any message to our overseas Filipino workers who are listening and watching right now?
Yes, of course. Our central message is one of assurance and our commitment that we will continually serve our dear OFWs and OFW families. The DMW as the tahanan ng OFWs is a place, or should I say a department, that will deliver on the legislative promise and executive directive on the part of the president,
Right.
to protect and to provide services, assistance to OFWs and their families, and our hotline, in case someone would need our help, is a shared hotline with Admin Arnel Ignacio and the OWA. It's a 1348 hotline, 4-digit hotline.
All right.
And it's 632 plus 632 if one is abroad, is out of the country. So please don't hesitate to contact us, to call us, and we will respond accordingly.
All right. And it's because President Marcos' marching order to you is to protect overseas Filipino workers.
Yes, that's right. That is first and foremost, that we will be there. We will be in front, beside, and behind OFWs and their families in order to protect their rights. We have migrant workers offices in 37 areas around the world, jurisdictions around the world and counting. We will add 3 or 4 more this year. And of course, here in the country, we have established regional offices, and we have an OFW hospital as well that we're operating for the better protection of OFWs.
All right. And with that, Secretary Kakdak, thank you for joining us in this program, Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. Maraming salamat and God bless po.
All right. And that concludes another edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can watch this program again over our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our producer Erwin Peñano and technical personnel Milo Janela, Leo Magpayo, and Stephanie Vicente, this is your host Jerome Toledo. Join us again in another edition of Front and Center. Mabuhay and love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.